Hey everybody, I'm Becky Adams and welcome to another edition of Inspiration Station here on the weekly Scrapper blog for the Stamp and Scrapbook Expo. Today I'm going to create a pocket page and I'm going to use the Cool Kid collection by Crate Paper. So what I've kind of gotten started here is I want to do a pocket page spread that has 9 pockets. So there will be 9 4x4 pockets. So I've got 3 photos here that I've printed at 4x4. And then I've pulled a few items. This is almost the entire collection here. I've got all the pattern paper that I'm using today, I have pulled from the 6x6 paper pad. So I didn't use any 12x12 paper in this project. And then I've just got a bunch of embellishments that I've pulled out here. I've got them right up here, kind of at the top of your screen. So I'll be pulling from those few little items that I've already kind of set aside that I'm pretty sure that I think I would like to use on this project. So I'm going to go just kind of one by one through each pocket and just show you how to pull together a really quick boy themed pocket page. So these photos actually, I mean, it's very boy themed, but it's also school themed because these are the photos of my kids that I took on their first day back at school. And this one's mostly focusing on my little guy that started first grade. So these are the photos. And I'm going to get started with the top right, or the top left, pardon me, the top left pocket. And so I've cut this piece of, it's kind of a red tone-on-tone pattern. And so I'm just going to create, this one doesn't have a photo or any journaling on it. So this one's almost just kind of for fun to put together. I've pulled this tag here. And before I put it in my pocket, I do want to add a little bit of twine here to the top. And then I'm just going to loop it back around and just staple those ends down there with my tiny attacher. Okay, and I'm going to adhere that right here. I also pulled this book, this piece of chipboard that has some books on it. And what I did is, when I pull a piece of chipboard from the big, this came from the 12x12 chipboard shape. Sometimes if I'm not exactly sure where I want to put it, I will just peel the backing off of it so that it's just a, so there's no adhesive on it. And sometimes I like to add my own adhesive to these anyway, because they don't always stay in place as well as I'd like them to. So I just, most of the time with chipboard, I prefer to add my own adhesive. So I'm going to put the books right there. So I'm going to use, this is just a little, it's a rubber embellishment and just a green and yellow arrow. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of adhesive there. And then I think to finish this one off, I just want a little bit more of the staple, that metal texture. So I'm just going to put a couple of staples down there. Okay, so that's going to be in the upper left pocket. And then I think I want a photo in the top row. And I think that since this is kind of the photo that I want to focus on, I think I'll put this one right here in the middle. So this kind of a notebook, just lined pattern paper that I cut from the 6x6 paper pad. And you'll notice, I hope you can see it here on camera, but I've kind of got that torn edge up there at the top. I like the texture that adds, and so depending on the project, I usually leave that torn edge because I just kind of like the variation that it gives to my projects. And I'm just going to create kind of another pocket that's similar to this one. It doesn't have a photo, and I want my journaling down here in the bottom. So I think I'll just kind of have some fun embellishing with this one too. So we'll just add this die cut frame. It came from the ephemera pack. So I'm just going to create another kind of a little cluster. Let's see, I don't want that tag. I'm deciding not to go with this tag right here because I don't want too much yellow. I'm trying to get a good variation of colors throughout each pocket. I really like this ruler. I think I want to put it right along there, and I want my ruler to kind of hang off the end here. So I'm gonna do that, and then just use these are pretty heavy duty scissors because this is a thicker chipboard, and just trim off that end. And I will save this piece and use it on another project. And then I want to use this number 1 because I think it's fitting that he's in 1st grade. And then I like that label sticker, but I would like something with a little bit more color. Let me see. Let's do this. Yeah, I like the color that adds. So I'm just going to trim off the bottom of this tag because I want it to kind of appear that it's kind of peeking out from the back, or out from under that ruler. Okay, so I'll adhere that right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this label sticker. I'm going to cut it in half so that I can save that other portion for another project. And I'm going to just tuck that right under that globe die cut, and that will be the perfect background for this number 1. I'm going to adhere the number 1 on the top portion here with pop dots, just so that it matches up with the layers, because I am putting this on a piece of chipboard. And then to start on this 2nd row, I'm just going to kind of lay out my patterns here. And then I do want to add another photo. So let's just do that one right there. Okay, and then I'm going to lay out my bottom row here too, just so I want to make sure that I have my colors evenly spread throughout the layout. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. I've put my title here on this piece of pattern paper just for the sake of time and filming this video. And I'm thinking my title will go either one of those places, but I'm not sure yet. And then I have my journaling printed as well. But I don't want my title and journaling on the same row. Okay, so I think that's how I want it. So we'll work on this yellow pocket here. And this will be just another kind of embellishment, just a fun embellishment cluster. And I'm just pulling, nope. I do love this yellow tag. I want to, there, that's the place for that. And, okay, just kind of getting a feeling for where I want everything to go. Sometimes it is helpful to lay all of the elements, you know, kind of the things that you know where you want them to go. Like I knew that I just wanted one photo in each row, and that I wanted my title and my journaling to not be on the same row either. So now that I have kind of that basic grid, then I can finish up with my embellishing and kind of know where I want everything. So I'm going to go ahead And I do want a little bit more color on this one. I don't want just the plain black and blue. So I think you guys know that I love tags, and I think that that's going to be a good way to add a little pop of color is with that tag. So I'm going to go ahead and just take off, I just want that top portion, and I'm going to save this bottom portion in case I need to add a little bit of color somewhere else. And I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive here on the back side of my title. And just so you know, I'm using the Tape Runner XL, and that's a permanent tape runner by Thermoweb. And it's quickly become one of my favorite adhesives. First of all, because it's a great adhesive, it works really well. But I also love that little flap that flips over. I do a lot of creating away from home. I'll often go to my parents' house, or while I'm waiting for kids in the car or something like that. And so I love that it closes up and nothing will, you know, get stuck and gunk up my adhesive there. So that's just a little side note about one of my favorite products. Okay, then I'll go back to this one. I've got a few little things that I've left here that I've pulled. I really like this little airplane, and I think that I'm going to adhere that kind of like this, and I'm going to use my tiny attacher to just staple that airplane in place, because I don't want you to use adhesive because it would show through on that transparent die cut. That also came from the ephemera pack. The ephemera pack with this collection has transparent die cuts as well as just regular cardstock die cuts. So just to add a splash of color to this, right under this airplane, I'm going to add this little green tag. I'm just going to put that right there at the bottom. And then I'd like to add a little bit of red here to kind of balance things out. I've got a lot of red here and over here, so I want a splash of red. So let me see what, maybe this. I think this would be, yeah, I think I'm gonna stick that right on there. I'm gonna do two kinds of adhesive. I'm gonna use my tape runner on one half and a pop dot on the other half, and just stick that right there. I want to be able to read all the words, but to add that splash of red as well. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this row for now and kind of concentrate on this bottom row. This bottom card is a little bit busy. So I'm going to take one of the scraps that I have from the 6x6 paper pad. Okay, so we'll just use the scrap of what I cut down from this pocket over here. Then I'm going to use another tag. And before I adhere that, I do want to add just a little bit more of that twine here to the top. Okay, and I'm just going to use the lines on this pattern paper to line that up. And then I'm going to add, I really like this Brave sticker, and I think that that's going to be the best spot for it. And I'm adding this Brave sticker because my little man was really, really nervous about going to first grade. So I'm going to add this little robot. It came in the same package with the arrow, just with the Cool Kid collection. Just a little bit of adhesive there on the back. Just another, I'm using the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. And the thing that I like about this adhesive is that it stays really firm. It takes a few minutes for it to dry, but it does stay. Once it's stuck, it's not going anywhere. I'm moving on now to this pocket, and I want something to kind of back the journaling, because it's seeming to me like it's a little bit lost on that page. So I'm just looking through my scraps. The nice thing about using a 6x6 paper pad and cutting things down to a 4x4 is it gives you lots of these little strips and little pieces, little bits and pieces to work with. And I think this one will fit just about. You know what? I'm just going to leave it like that. It's not quite perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. Pretty close. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a couple of staples here on the bottom. Okay, and then I have just a few other little bits and pieces that I wanted to add in. So just a couple more die cuts. And I've got these 3 puffy stars. They came from there's a puffy sticker sheet that goes in with this collection, and I'm just going to add those just right there. I think that's the perfect, so I think that one's completely done. I have just this other little this other half of a label sticker, and I'm wondering if it would just slide. There we go. Just right there under that pocket to just kind of finish things off on that one. And then I have just this tiny Let's Go sticker. I just cut a few of the elements away. If you notice, I've cut a lot away from the backing with their stickers. And I do that just so that, like right now, I can kind of decide where I want the little tiny sticker and kind of get an overview of the page instead of having the whole sticker sheet to move around. I think I'm just going to add that right down here and staple that in place. And then I want to add just maybe 1 or 2 more of the puffy stickers. So I'm just looking here. I think that this little arrow would be a perfect addition right here, because it gives that pocket an extra kind of splash, extra little bit of blue. These stars are always great to kind of fill in those little gaps. And I think with that, I am finished. So thank you for stopping by. I hope that you enjoyed watching this pocket page come together. Let me know what you'd like to see in upcoming videos. If you'd like to see cards, scrapbook pages, pocket pages, stamping. I'd love to hear what you'd like to see here on the Scrapbook Expo YouTube channel. So leave me a note in the comments. I'll make sure and get back to you. Thanks again for stopping by this week, and I'll see you again soon.